Okay, Jez, I want to talk about debate today because there's been some broad discussion, some heated discussion about who should be platformed and which kind of views are okay to air.
Oh, this is the old free speech versus platforming, and how
Yes.
dare you give these mad people oxygen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gained new momentum in the last few weeks. And one of the reasons was SBS had a show on masculinity, had a group of men talking about, and they were discussing subjects like this, Jez, and I want your response to it.
Okay, go.
You ready? Having lots of sexual partners is tied to your status as a man.
None of your business.
Men have a responsibility to step up and stop domestic violence.
Yes. This is a very fast debate, by the way. We're having.
Traditional gender roles are the backbone of a healthy society.
Look, I think you do you. Like, everyone's got a different idea. Find someone that you're compatible with and do that. Like, I don't feel like I need to prescribe
I'm not
these
even
things,
outraged
but
by you.
I just like, I find it a bit rage baity, Jules.
Yeah, to be having those kinds of discussions.
I just feel
Or to be having certain views.
both. I just think the fact that it kind of demands a response from a viewer, a listener, just kind of exhausting.
But they're really important discussions to have. And do we just keep them underground? Do we just let them stay on social media and they're never interrogated by people who really disagree with each other? Is there a role for that?
Something else I want to talk about, Jules, this week is one of the big tasks ahead for this government. One of the big platforms they got elected on was about improving productivity in Australia. It's a big economic issue in Australia, and the Productivity Commission is looking at ways to loosen things up a bit by allowing big tech to train AI models on creative work produced by writers and musicians, scooping it all up from the internet to allow AI to basically become better.
But then what of the artists, the creatives, the writers in all of this? Will their work be recognised or even paid for, Jez? I'm Julia Baird.
And I'm Jeremy Fernandez, and this is Not Stupid, where we chat about the news of the week and the stuff that's tickling your feeds.
Okay, Jez, let's talk about debate. Now, before we talk about this in particular, can I just preface it with I love debate.
Yeah, same.
I feel like in a lot of ways, a lot of my career in journalism has been about managing debate. I was the opinion editor at the Sydney Morning Herald. I have written columns for a long time. You know, as host of The Drum, it's all about the right kind of debate and who says what and who's a good foil to another person. Do you progress things? Like, where does expertise lie versus lived experience? And you've done the same thing,
I've done
right?
the same thing. So you do opinion and analysis.
Yes.
I do news. So
Yeah.
similar but different.
Yes.
But my job is not there to mount a persuasive argument for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
but it's to put two sides and then kind of hand it over to the viewer, hand it over to the listener and say, you decide.
Yeah.
Over to you now. And it requires a bit of media literacy, which is where we come to the outrage that's been sparked by these recent couple of debates, one on the feed on SBS and one published by Jubilee on their YouTube channel.
Yes. But can I say that, I mean, I've been following what both these outlets have been doing for some time because I really firmly believe that it's important that we continue to talk to each other. And we're not talking to each other anymore, and so we're not understanding each other. Like, when you get such a fragmented, fractured media landscape, you don't hear the opposing view. And when you do hear it, it's like a caricature. It's idiocy. You don't hear, like, a really smart reasoning that's opposed to your own. So I love those kinds of contests if they're done right. And I think it's really important because that stops us from having contempt for other people if we understand each other better.
And it's not necessarily an act of persuasion, right? I think too often we see opposing points of view as an attempt to make us change our minds.
No.
And quite often it can actually consolidate your own beliefs. And
But
your
if you
own ideology.
understand where someone else is coming from, and it doesn't mean they're a horrendous or demonic individual, they might have a really good set of values that you appreciate that takes them to a different place.
Okay, so talk us through this show on the feed on SBS. It was a bunch of men, 6 men, talking about masculinity in the modern day.
That's right. So they were roughly grouped as 3 progressive and 3 non-progressive. How you'd actually, title this would be, categorise it is kind of tricky. But we have Tarang Chawla, who's a very thoughtful advocate against domestic abuse. His sister died when she was 23, very violent death when she was trying to leave her partner.
And he's very much an advocate, isn't he, of men needing to be part of the solution to domestic violence.
100%. Yep. So, and there's Jeff Kasubi, he is an activist, a media personality, and Mitch Wallace, a mental health expert, who was really quite useful throughout it all, I think, because he kept bringing in studies and showing what the consequences of some of these beliefs were. And those grouped as within the conservative online influencers were Dean Wells, who people might know was formerly on Married at First Sight, Clayton Harrop, who's kind of a coach for men in relationships, and he's got some online presence on that front. Chris Catalaris, who's an online fitness coach and commentator as well. So that was the groupings. Now, I've named 3 of the topics that they discussed. They also talked about men are wired to be more aggressive. The male loneliness epidemic isn't being taken seriously. And the dating world holds men to different and sometimes tougher dating standards. Do you think that's true?
I think there are patches of it here and there. I don't think it's an exclusively male problem, though.
Yeah.
I kind of see it in all sorts of demographics kind of playing out in different ways. And the currency isn't necessarily the same between different demographics. So one thing that struck me about the debate was how much it was based on feelings. And feelings are valid. Everyone's feelings are valid.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you've got to root it in evidence. And the dissonance happens, I think, when your feelings and your experience don't line up with the evidence, the objective evidence about men's mental health, about loneliness, about men's suicide, all of which are very, very serious issues. So I felt there was a bit of disconnect there, but kind of a really worthwhile debate and really interesting to watch. Although I did find myself getting just a bit worked up. And I want to play you this little clip here just to give you a bit of a flavour of what this debate was like.
I personally believe and have the belief that the lower a woman's body count, the better for her and for her future partner. Like, I've slept with my number, like my share of women, right? And had a great connection with them, and I don't look at a woman any less because of it. However, if it's going to be the mother of my children and she's going to be a representation of me, I don't want 20 other men able to say, yeah, I've been with her, bro. And if she is a chink in the armour, that directly affects every other area of our life, whether we like it or not. If God willing said, design your perfect woman, and said, put a body count on the chart of what she's.
I think God's busy, man.
Okay, Jez, now that part about body count was a really interesting part of the discussion. It is the discussion that's had the most airplay, that has enraged most people, because essentially it's slut shaming. Essentially it's saying men, are actually better off for having more sexual partners. As one of them said, there's no downside. Dean, all the women he knows thinks a man who's had a lot of sexual partners is a higher value man, and that there's no downside, said another, because they're just better in bed, which is obviously, I'd want to fact check that particular.
I feel like I need a study to confirm that because it feels a bit double standardy, right? Which is not a surprise.
Straight up, they said that.
But one of the guys actually said, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite. And I was like, yes, you are.
That was Clayton.
And then it kind of, for me as a viewer, just removed credibility. When someone kind of acknowledges their own hypocrisy, I think it damages their own credibility. So I kind of just find it very difficult to take anything he said seriously beyond that.
But then we had Tarang pushing back and saying, I don't care. Who cares? She might have more experience. It's a good thing. It doesn't.
But
we did see it push back on.
Can you imagine asking someone, what's your body count? Like, just mortifying.
But I do know amongst teenagers, it is a real thing.
Really?
Yeah. People talk about body counts all the time. Like, I think that's a generational thing as well. So what we saw then is reflecting what's on TikTok and what's being discussed, what your body count and whether it matters or not. And that's what is interesting is it's, this overt, like, I realise it's not a thing for me, but I realise that I'm treating men and women differently, but that's just the way it is.
But ultimately, in a debate setting, is it worthwhile, do you think, having that debate, those views being aired. And it's similar to the Jubilee thing, Mehdi Hassan taking on 20, I think it was fascists in the United States, defending the MAGA movement, basically. And Mehdi Hassan, who's a well-known broadcaster, British-born, he's an American citizen now, and taking them on in an argument one by one. And some of those views were really extreme as well about, and it was all to do with eugenics and
genocide
of white people, that genocide is sometimes understandable. I mean, these are crazy views.
Yeah.
So Jubilee, if you haven't heard of it, is a YouTube channel, and they specialise in throwing together these debates, extreme points of view.
Yep.
As you say, it can be entertaining, it can be controversial, and it can be enlightening at times as well. But they're really well done.
But not always extreme. You know, when you have Trumpers versus non-Trumpers, when you have, you know, I think with Jordan Peterson, they were talking about Christianity, right? So like or tradwives and progressives, there's a lot of interesting debates on there. I do think debates have gone underground, and I think it's a massive challenge for mainstream media to say, how do we have it where it's still respectful?
But not be accused of platforming dangerous
Not be
ideas.
accused of platforming.
But to what extent do we as journalists tuck those views away versus kind of saying, hey, open debate, controversial ideas, here we go?
I lean towards, with it when it's something like the masculinity debate, I want to hear that aired. I don't want, like, I think it's obscene to say women aren't attractive to me anymore if they have a high body count. But I like seeing men take them on and say that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, right.
I like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to fascism, no. And when you won't condemn Hitler and Nazism, and then you'll say, actually, you could call me a Nazi, I think that's platforming hatred.
So this is the thing I have with the way success in media is measured these days, that it's about extreme, and you see this all the time in extreme headlines, in extreme debates like this, where you take the furthest sort of extremities of an argument, kind of mash them together and then see what erupts. And what it produces is engagement. And we know that this is profitable, right? But what it also does is, I think, damage our sense of where the middle is. It damages our sense of the median, of the mean, of where people are.
Well,
really
the Overton window.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that space in which what can be said out loud is acceptable. And a lot of people are saying that, well, Jubilee kind of started out and really great debates. I have loved some of their debates. When you get like a Dean Withers progressive surrounded by Trump supporters and he takes them on one by one. I love that combat of ideas. Let's have it openly. And sometimes people will make you think a different way. And of course, it can be schlocky and it can be entertainment and da-da-da. But once you get to the point where you've got fascists on there, then you know the Overton window is shifting. You know the right is kind of jumping on this gleefully and saying we're actually mainstream now, or this is acceptable now. And I think that is extremely problematic. Well, what do you think, for example, with the SBS one?
Okay, so my immediate reaction was that it was just really rage baity.
Yeah.
Because some of those extreme views, and maybe I live in a bubble, but didn't fit with my window of where I understand the median to be of men and masculinity, right? So I found some of the ideas just so bizarre. I don't believe in suppressing that sort of debate, but I also think there's a degree of media literacy that needs to be involved in saying, you know what, I'm just not going to engage with this stuff. There was a really good piece published by the Australian Psychological Society a couple of weeks ago about rage bait damaging our mental health, right? And it says it's motivated by profit for content makers, especially with things like TikTok, actively generate income for content makers who generate lots of reaction. And it doesn't actually distinguish between positive engagement and negative angry engagement. Engagement is engagement. What it also says is that it motivates political outcomes. So the ANU's Dr. Simon Copland is an expert in what we call the manosphere, and he told the ANU reporter that in addition to making money, rage bait can also be generated for political reasons. Creating fake news articles or overemphasising particular parts of news articles to create anger directed at certain groups of people can lead to political outcomes such as greater engagement with a political party or right-wing figure, and that's often deliberately done. And I think that's the danger, because it activates these extreme points of view, makes them mainstream, and then all of a sudden
everyone's
it's
responding
a political
to that
movement.
to that argument or that particular idea. I wasn't shocked by any of the ideas that I heard on that show. I've heard them said. That body count, I've heard teenage boys say it. I've heard guys in their 20s and 30s talk about it, and I've heard women talk about it as well. I thought there was an element there that was not explored, which was Clayton, who was the first one who said, yeah, I know I'm a hypocrite. He had like a religious element to some of what he said. He said, this is about purity, and in fact, I don't want my wife to have slept with anyone. There are a lot of people in faith communities that have very conservative views about sex, but they never speak them. And it's twinned with ideas about controlling women. They often go together.
And this is the thing that struck me.
Yes.
He was quite prepared to admit that he's not holding himself to the same religious standard, right? So then I wanted an answer to that.
Yeah.
I was like, how do you come up with two different metrics to measure what's acceptable for someone else versus what standards you're prepared to meet as well?
Yeah, because purity culture is ultimately about controlling women. We've seen historically that that's the end result of that. But then how would we have a debate that's not considered rage baiting, that had a genuine conservative Christian, Muslim, Hindu who was like, I think these traditional roles are really important. I think the man is the head of the woman. I think the woman should submit to him and obey him without that rage baiting.
It's worth such a longer discussion, isn't it? But one that's held in good faith, I think. So where do we leave this idea of debate then? Like, to what extent do we kind of censor ideas, particularly as journalists?
Okay, I'll give you my really quick take.
Okay, go on.
Debate, massively important. And things that people don't feel comfortable to say out loud sometimes, I kind of want to hear them, and I want to have experts, solid lived experience. I want people to be matched, just matched in terms of debating and thinking skill as well.
Yeah.
But I think that you are just really careful to not raise up voices that promote hate and violence.
And to approach it in good faith as well.
Good faith.
With the openness that anyone involved in that debate might just change their mind.
So, Jez, did you ever see the movie The Blob?
No.
Have you heard of it?
I have, yes.
So it was made in 1958, and then they did another version in 1988. Basically, just some amoebal mass. Is that even a word?
It is now.
Yes, it fell from outer space and then just grows and grows and grows and takes over a town. And you've got all these people screaming, so-and-so's been killed. And then all these horror shots, like it's oozing through the bowling alley. It's coming through all the cracks and the crevices. And then it soaks up, like it kind of annihilates people and sucks them up all at the same time. Funnily enough, when I was reading about AI for this...
I knew a metaphor was coming.
That is what came to mind. You can't stop it. Yeah. The blob is coming. It's every nook and cranny and places you've never even heard of.
And it's approaching faster than most of us had expected.
Yeah.
And we're all actually mostly kind of engaged with AI in some way on a daily basis, right?
Yes, it has infiltrated our lives, but it is also kind of sucking up jobs and people. And that's obviously a very negative take. There's going to be a lot of fantastic things from AI. We know this, especially with medical advances. That's what I'm like probably really particularly excited by, pulling that knowledge and what might then be possible. But, you know, when it comes to creative work...
Which has been a big discussion in Australia
this week. They've been scraping and mining all this work to feed and train their models. So original content, we're talking here about Australian.
Publicly available
publicly available, but you usually pay for it unless you go to your library. And it's being done without consent, without remuneration, and without any transparency.
And without laws that really kind of
Nothing.
protect anything, right?
Having said that, the copyright laws as they stand should prevent it, but it's still been happening.
So just in case you need a refresher on Australian copyright law, if you write, say, a book, a poem or a song, or you make a podcast, you own the copyright to that piece of work, right? And copyright law in Australia protects those works for 70 years after the author's death. So Australia is considered a global leader in this sort of area in protecting creatives and granting them the right to own the creative aspects of their work. I remember thinking when I was young that once you got famous from a song, a poem, a book,
Yeah, it was on.
you were famous,
Yeah.
you would become wealthy, and the rest of your life would be
Living
great.
clover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's been such a kind of realization that creatives don't actually do it for the money. And you're a writer, right? Like, I mean, writing is not a particularly lucrative pastime.
No, you're quite often in debt.
As a result of it,
Given all the time and all the work and all the research it takes. I mean, think about in Australia, if you talk about like technically to have a best-selling book, you can sell 15,000 copies or more. Say you get $1 or $2 a copy, you might get 20,000 taxed down to 10. And that's however many years work. Good luck with the cost of living crisis. So, no, that's right. And it means that whatever protections are in place are really important.
And the reason we're talking about this in Australia this week is that the Productivity Commission has been looking at ways to tackle what some people are calling, perhaps unfairly, that's a separate debate, but it's what some people are calling a national productivity crisis. Basically, that the inputs to what we the resources and the people that we use to make stuff has stagnated. And so we need to become more productive as an economy in order to lift living standards. So the equation here is that basically the Productivity Commission says we should use AI to improve productivity, so have fewer inputs to make more things, the economy improves and our standard of living goes up. It has calculated that this could be worth $116 billion to the Australian economy in the next 10 years alone. So there is something to be gained here for the collective. Now, one aspect of this is that it's looking at ways to improve productivity in the creative space. And to do that, it would need to allow AI to scoop up all this material from the internet for free in order to train AI models to generate creative content, which would, as big tech argues, benefit the whole of society. That the greater good here is what we should be aiming for. But there are some holes in this argument, aren't there?
Well, why can't we pay for it? It would be my primary question. A lot of money is being made in AI, billions and billions of dollars. So why is it that the small fry whose work is relied on are not given any compensation or remuneration? Like, you will further cripple the creative industry, which, by the way, is struggling. The publishing industry is really struggling right now.
What about the argument? Sorry.
Yeah.
What about the argument for the greater good, though, that ultimately this is not aimed at helping someone copy Taylor Swift, copy Nina Simone and produce exactly the same work. It's about inspiring them. This is the word that big tech uses, inspiring people and giving them a tool to create something new. What do you think about that argument? Because I wonder, firstly, how you'd go about policing that and what would constitute a copy versus an inspiration.
So are you less inspired if you buy an album or a book?
No, of course not. No.
So if you are, let's presume these tech companies are not struggling financially. Why wouldn't you pay for it? I mean, it's just as simple as that. And of course, we want to be innovative and productive. We also want creatives to be innovative as well. But there are some huge financial interests here saying, well, we just need it. Boy Swallows Universe, Trent Dalton, one of my favourite people, the man who's like full of so much light and love and passion for writing. His stories in many ways have defined a generation. He says that when he discovered that 10 editions of his books were on like a pirate site used to train the AI platform for Meta, and you can go to a tool by The Atlantic and work out if your work's in there. So my work's in there, my biography of Queen Victoria. They just 5 years of my life, no problem. Trent said, I feel like I just came home to find my house robbed. There's nothing in my house as valuable to me as the real human thought and the deep human feeling that I put into those books that these literary looters have plundered. That's how personal it is for me. I describe it as creepy. I mean, it's really theft. So that's what, ASA, the head of the Australian Society of Authors, Josh Bornstein, said if it was adopted, this would institutionalise wage theft for those working in creative industries. It's not like the government is saying we've got like a sector that is starved of resources and we could do so much better and so much bigger if we could just use your work. I think it's just there are these behemoths that want to essentially exploit the time and work of creatives.
But it's already been happening, right? This work has already been scooped up.
Yes.
Has the horse then already bolted? Because this work has already been scooped up. It already exists and the AI has been trained. So it's possibly too late to kind of reverse the training of these AI models, that they've already had the benefit of scooping this up in a legislative environment and framework that has kind of allowed this to happen.
Yeah, I think that, yes, I think the horse has bolted, but it's in sight. And whether we're just passive about it and go, oh, well, I guess just billionaires will do what billionaires do, then that I think would be a terrible response, because the reason so many authors and musicians have stepped up about this is because to create is to say and be something fundamentally human. You think about someone like Nick Cave, who's been very vocal on his views on AI, and how for him so much of his recent work has so beautifully told how joy meets suffering and how astonishing that is, and how out of that grief and pain and yet acknowledging that the sun is out and acknowledging that you can still see beauty, he creates art. Do AI systems do that? Is that an artificial intelligence thing? Like, what is it? What are we saying about what we value about being human? And there are some different alternatives. So Kimberly Weatherall, she's Professor of Law at the University of Sydney and the co-director of the Centre for AI Trust in Government, said on RN Breakfast, it's difficult for companies who want to train AI legitimately because there's no central system and it will be difficult to identify who to license from. There's a IT Wire reporter, Chris Griffiths. Now, he says there could be a tiered payment schedule, one for work slowly to train models and then discarded. Another for content that's retained and reproduced in some form, which would remove kind of any ambiguity around it and reduce the risk of drawn-out legal battles. And AI developers would still gain access to the content they need while fairly compensating creators. There's got to be another way, even though, yes, the horse is already well on its way down the field, I think. And it's not to say that any of those creators will be fully antagonistic towards AI, and many of them may in fact employ it. When we go back to Nick Cave, he says things like, ChatGPT is fast-tracking the commodification of the human spirit by mechanising the imagination. It renders our participation in the act of creation as valueless and unnecessary, and they think it will destroy the world's soul. So there's an understandable hostility, but there could be ways of working together if we start on a playing field that's not just like all the people with the money and the power can tell us what's good for society. We need to listen to those people who devote their lives to creative work, which kind of uplifts and like so many of us. It gives us so much that there's a lot at stake if we don't respect and value it.
Okay, time for Pick of the Week, Jules. What have you got for me? Tell me.
Can you remember how we were recently talking about Andrea Gibson,
yes,
the poet from the US who just died, and we were talking about some of their writing and how they wrote not long, just like a few weeks before they died, a list of the things that they loved. Just how gorgeous that was.
And kind of relatively mundane things.
Yes.
The everyday.
Yes, that get you through and that you realise are everything. And we asked people to write in with some of the things that they loved, and the Smarties did not disappoint, Jez, as
love
usual.
our listeners,
I know.
yes.
We've got lots of gorgeous emails with the most random but lovely list of things. So let's read some of them, Jez. So Julia says, I'm fortunate enough to be a primary school teacher. I love the little sparkle in my students' eyes when they make a mistake and realise it. When you and I do that, it's panic. It's like, what? We spend a great deal of time speaking about mistake making and breaking the stigma of mistakes and the excitement in their little faces when they realise the second opportunity has presented itself. I hope they never lose that sparkle.
How lovely.
That is, I never would have thought of that.
Jan wrote to us as well and says this, in no particular order: the perfect bite, getting a portion of everything from my dinner plate onto the fork and eating it all in one go. Do you know, Jan,
Right.
I'll say this,
Right.
I get satisfaction from doing the complete opposite. I like to segregate my food and taste everything individually.
You never mush it together.
Don't, very rarely.
Oh, wow.
I just like...
As a kid, did you always like...
Always, yes.
Did they have to be in separate bowls?
No, not separate bowls, but I had a
Not
I had a
touching?
plate. This is like an Indian kind of plate. a
With
traditional plate.
divisions.
Yeah, it's like the thali plate.
Yeah.
It's naturally built into the bowl. Everything is kept separate.
And you need that
And
now.
I'd kind of have a little breakdown if my mum accidentally mixed things together. It's touching. The foods. Anyway, Jan likes getting the perfect bite all
Yes.
in one fork.
Well, Barbara Streisand did this in an old movie, she said, and she's appropriated it ever since. Isn't that funny?
The first daffodils of spring.
100%.
Agree.
Love that.
Any bulb. And also when one of my children rings unexpectedly just for the heck of it. How
Oh,
lovely.
That's so
I'm going to
sweet.
be that parent too. KJ also wrote to us and says she listens to us every week and it's her reward after she gets her 2-year-old to go down for a nap.
Not always an easy task.
Exactly. And she wrote us a poem and says it was honestly one of the most mindful and soul-filling things I've done for a long time. Just share with us some bits
of
from
the
this
things.
poem. Yeah.
I love this. I love a cup of tea made by someone else. Always a little sweeter, always better. Again, I'm the opposite. I love a cup of tea I make myself because it's always perfect. But that's great. I love rainbows, always sudden, always just in time. The surprise of a rainbow is a great thing. I love the smell of spring in the air and freshly cut grass, a reminder that things begin again. That's the best smell. And I love dancing, barefoot, heart first.
Yes.
We don't say that enough. We say head first a lot. Heart first until I forget time and remember who I am. That is a perfect line.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so look, after doing this, I really highly recommend to the Smarties that you sit down at some point, any point, and give it 10 minutes and write down a list of the things you really love. Because it's kind of therapeutic and lovely. And I think if you do a different time of day or a different month, you'd think of different things. So I did it. And I've got just a couple of lines from it. I'll publish this at some point, but it's like, it was such a nice thing to sit down and write. I love the way dogs stare up at us the way we stare at the moon. I love the snaking roots of Moreton Bay figs. I love the thick thighs of AFL players. I love mirrored disco balls, which you gave me one.
I did.
I love that when you strip the human heart of muscle and fat, it looks like a sea fan.
Oh my gosh.
Intricate and delicate. I'll send you the photo. I love people who lack rhythm but dance like fiends. I love the colours and quiet determination of lichen. I love the ferocity of older women. I love the way old men blow their noses, the way a novice might blow a tuba.
I think I'm getting to that point in my life. Actually.
Honk.
It's, yeah,
I
quite
kind
shameless.
of love it. I love people who go on social media and tell strangers they're proud of them. I love that bees communicate through two kinds of dances, the waggle dance and the circle dance. And I love that dung beetles navigate using the stars.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I love this. What a great list, Jules.
Thanks.
Fabulous.
It's a little sample. What have you got for me, Jez?
So I know dance is one of your favourite things, Jules.
Yes.
And I want to point to a study from Charles Sturt University as my pick of the week. showing that dance is not necessarily limited to humans, that cockatoos have particular dance moves. And how did they do this? They analysed 45 social media videos.
Oh, I was going to say, there's so many social media videos.
Of cockatoos and birds dancing, right? Smart birds
have you seen
dancing.
that one? And it's just like one cockatoo going like this, and then like, and there's your mad cousin, and there's one that's going round and round in circles, crazy.
So this is what they found: 30 distinct movements, 17 of which were previously undocumented. And they further investigated this behaviour. They went to Wagga Wagga Zoo in New South Wales, and they played some birds, 6 birds, different types of cockatoos, different sounds. So they played silence, they played music, and they played a podcast. It's the She's on the Money podcast, so it's like training them on finances.
It wasn't like a Jubilee.
They danced to Avicii. They danced to music, and they think it's got to do with something about evolutionarily trying to mate and attract a mate and kind of having extreme dance moves. But they also think that birds are doing that in a positive welfare state, they call it. Basically, the birds are happy and they're dancing.
Wow.
And so what they're hoping to do is to use that research to improve the welfare of birds in captivity, birds that are not receiving enough environmental stimulation, to help improve their lives in captivity and give them the gift of music, because they like dancing just as much as you, Jules.
Oh, that's so good.
That's cool.
Now I want to try which songs. I mean, Avicii, sure.
Yeah.
Like what else? I mean, I suppose just the full spectrum. Would you have like a death metal
I wonder if
cockatoo?
they kind of recognise a sad song versus a happy song versus a dancing song, because I've got my playlists all sorted out according to my mood.
Yes.
Sometimes I just need to have a sit down and cry.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to get up and dance, even if it's just by myself.
You've got your Not Stupid playlist.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think it would be fascinating to see what depth they feel, the emotional connection to a piece of music. But it gets them up and dancing.
But it's interesting how we always look for an evolutionary thing. That what is the purpose? Why do humans do this? And maybe there is something like a heartbeat. Maybe there's something that just propels you. I don't know.
And also when you're dancing in a crowd and everyone's kind of moving
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
I think there's something quite
We need
entrancing
cockatoo
about
raves. They're just solo dancing now. Jez, so good to chat to you.
Very nice to catch up, Jules, as always.
Yes.
Now, don't forget, you can contact us anytime. We love to hear from you.
Love it.
Email us at notstupid@abc.net.au. Our producers are Cinnamon Nippard and Madeline Jenner.
Yes.
Jules, catch you again next week.
Next week. And we're now on ABC iView as well.